Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on a Wednesday, July 24th at 1 p.m. Better late than never, huh? Busy day, busy day. So, the title of the stream today is The Brink. Finally. But, pay attention to the tone and the sentiment that I'm expressing with this. We understand that there's the cyclicality in markets. We understand that there's a cyclicality that has been discussed over the past years with regard to debt financing requirements. We understand the size, scale, scope of global debt. We understand what has changed past 2008. We understand that post 2020, bond market is screaming that something is different. We understand that if there's a deflationary cascade, there's little to nothing that the system could do to interrupt it. It is inflated to such a monumental degree that we have to really appreciate what they did in 2020. In 2020, what they did was threw cash at everything. That's what they needed to do to interrupt the deflationary cascade. 2020 was the first experience post 2008 domestically in the US that we had that type of scenario present itself. So in 2008, everything was falling apart, and they tried everything they could for a long time, a year or so, and Congress had to do what they had to do. Had to do. In 2020, it was relatively quick because they learned from 2008, and it took 12 years, and they threw everything at it, trillions upon trillions, and they nothing was too big. I think that was general terminology that was expressed by regulators and policymakers. Couldn't go too big. They needed to interrupt the deflationary cascade. Now, it's a bit of a different system right now in 2024, and they have use of reverse repo and repo. It's historically there. And they have DTCC and Central Treasury Clearing, which is rolling out probably as fast as they frickin' possibly can do it. So there's a lot of mechanisms in place to slow that kind of cascade that occurs from fear and interrupt it in different ways. It allows them to have more levers to pull and more inputs and outputs that they can play around with to push the system in a direction of not fucking imploding. Where that cyclicality is presenting itself, where everything is wanting to contract. The burden of the global financial system is that once it starts contracting from its current massive size, it gets compounds, and it aggressively accelerates ferociously. The directionality is a funny thing. Directionality is like the momentum of a spinning wheel. Directionality continues and accelerates until capitulation and reversal, and there can't be an organic reversal from a deflation from where we are. So there's artificial reversals by the massaging of policy, and policy is strange territory. It's not just interest rates, it's also what the Treasury is doing, massaging the issuance, what Nouriel Roubini is talking about most recently, and it's obviously fiscal spending. They say that rising interest rates is supposed to slow credit. Didn't really slow credit at all for the US government. They just kept borrowing. In fact, they borrowed more. So that's why we haven't had a contraction thus far, because they have been spending, spending, and spending, which has supplemented the private sector's credit, bank credit. That was the 70s, where bank credit was facilitating the currency expansion. But now it's the federal government, and that's what Lynn and folks are talking about with regard to fiscal dominance. They're overwhelming the system. They are crowding out private credit because the public credit is just demanding all the credit that's possibly available. So as we sit here at the brink, let's take a look at the charts that interest me the most. And the thing that caught my eye today is the yen. The yen, historically, when the yen reverses and the yen strengthens really hard, um, it's basically akin to what people talk about when historically interest rates rolled over and the Fed starts cutting, the system is falling apart. And we've seen some of those charts. I don't have them, but usually when the Fed starts cutting, we're in a significant drawdown and things are starting to roll over very hard. And that's a historic precedent that that is the case. So cutting is usually the foreshadow for recession and things starting to roll over. It's not necessarily the same mechanisms or the same pressures in the system this time around. The system is different. Bond market screams that the system is different. And I think that's the same case with the yen. Folks are expecting a bullish yen to trigger this type of cascade that we've historically seen in the charts that we see with interest rates rolling over. And I think mechanically we're going to see some different behavior this time. What I'm looking for is the final breach of the yen to the downside versus the dollar. Well, technically this is dollar versus yen, but we want the yen to strengthen to the point where it breaches the time weighted average price to the downside with conviction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months of failed strengthening of the yen back in 2023. Complete failed strengthening back at the end of 23 as well. We needed to break down. Once the yen starts strengthening, what does that indicate from a currency perspective? That indicates a flow of capital, not currency. The value or the value that's transferred by the redenomination of currency, or rather, if you're using dollars to buy yen, the value is going to the yen, and that purchasing power and all that value is now in Japan in yen currency. So what it really signifies is the flow of capital, the flow of value, spending power. And that's very much in the sentiment of emerging market cyclicality. As the dollar strengthens, everyone's buying everything they can in the U.S. There's the buy whatever you can, dollar denominated. When the dollar is weakening, the value goes out of the United States in emerging market cycle. So we've talked historically about crypto markets. I define as an emerging market of emerging markets. Great, that's part of the equation. We also have to think in terms of purchasing power of foreign fiat currencies. Yen strengthens, other currencies around the world strengthen. There is much more foreign currency as compared to dollars on the planet. So there goes the currency expansion cycle. So this all plays into the cyclicality we discussed. The strengthening of foreign currency is really going to cause a very different appreciation of different assets around the world. And it just so happens that the crypto market is not a U.S. market. It's a market that's worldwide. So that's the most interesting thing. The crypto markets are affected by dollar appreciation and depreciation, but they're also affected by the value of foreign currencies and the different interests of people around the world that don't operate in a dollar denominated. In many regards, they still operate in a dollar denominated world, but they still operate in their local fiat currency. So now all of a sudden they have more relative purchasing power. So we're not there yet. You see it in the move indicator. You see in the DXY finally rolling over. We start to see the euro really strengthen, the yen really strengthen, finally start to see the dollar coming down. Dollar still needs to break the time-weighted average price to the downside with conviction. It tried to back in January of 2023, going on over a year and a half. After its blow-off, this massive capitulation to the upside, the strength of the dollar tried to break down, and policymakers couldn't quite get it. Geopolitical policy in play. Failed breakdown over the course of months, over the course of an entire year and a half. Once this finally breaks down and we get below 100 again, Santiago Velez could take off his mask that he put on back in 2020 when he said he would break a hundred. Um, and we'll finally get back to a more favorable condition for asset prices, which is frankly horrible. The distortions, we understand the reality of asset prices. When we say crypto markets appreciating, we're literally talking about inflation. We're pricing out people that don't have the money to now buy Bitcoin at $64,000, $65,000, $66,000. It's back. So this is inflation. Same inflation as housing price inflation, as consumer price inflation. This is the inflation of a market, the crypto market. So what's the takeaway of where we are aside from the brink? I don't think we're at the brink of necessarily a deflationary cascade. We're seeing weakness in equity markets, and that is certainly an expression of the fear of exactly what comes from Fed starting to cut rates, yen strengthening. People know that as the dollar rolls over, foreign currencies strengthen. It's typically the precursor for the interest rate cuts and equity markets rolling over and the evacuation or the flow of capital reversing from inside the US to outside of the US. From a crypto market perspective, Jesus, NASDAQ down 2.83%. But look what it looks like on a monthly chart. This is obviously logged, but still the takeaway is there. This is the type of candle you print at a top, a reversal. Where's Bitcoin? Bitcoin's at $66,473. Structurally, this thing is in another universe. Raoul calls it an alien asset class, and that is pretty much the case. This is an absolute alien chart. And now with the ETFs, so you have macro flows, but you also have micro flows, and this is a micro market in the grand scheme of things, the size of the global financial system. So you could easily have significant capital. You can have the equity markets completely collapsing in theory. There's fear spreads to the crypto markets, but you still can have significant flows here. People are selling the equities, and they're like, what do we buy? Oh, relative outperformance. Relative outperformance could easily be to the downside. You could have depreciation, and it's depreciating less than something else. But if there's enough relative outperformance, technically it can remain horizontal and even appreciate during deflation of equity markets. It's a reallocation of capital. Capital flows from what's underperforming to outperforming. And if this is outperforming, it's going to suck the available capital out of everything. That's what Bitcoin folks talk about for quite some time now. It's just going to demonetize everything as it continues to outperform relatively. This chart is absolutely insane to look at. And it's this line right here at about 61,700, give or take on the monthly. 61,303 to be specific. And those are the previous candle body closes back in 2000, end of 21. So from a monthly standpoint, these candles are structurally insane. We're going on 5 months, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months of basically a resistance flip support, a previous resistance flip support with regard to a monthly candle body close. It's absolutely insane. Same for Ethereum with the ETFs going live. Similar structure, just yet Ethereum blew off here. But it's the same line. It's all structurally the same thing, and you could also look to Solana in some regard. But there's your candle close. Let's change it to, where's the color? So here, change it to green because it's a nice green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months above the structural close. It was rejected. This is a ceiling. There was a breakout from this ceiling. One, rejected, 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 rejected. Resistance flip support. Very similar structure. Very, very constructive as compared to shit like these equity markets, which is just up only because of flows, passive flows. People that don't have a decision making process in their investments. It's just buy, 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 buy. They don't know why they're buying. It's all 401ks. This is a decision-making process, though. Those flows don't necessarily exist. So this is intentional. This is a choice. Very, very different expression of investment capacity. Looking at this type of chart versus a NASDAQ or an S&P. I like to zoom out. It still takes time. We could be the Brink time horizon. How long do these types of moves take to play out? It could be months, months, months. So that's why we look at this data to be comfortable and let the system do what it's going to do. At some point, the dollar rolls over. At some point, bond market volatility rolls over. And we'll see the capital flow out of the U.S. into emerging markets. See foreign currency strengthen, which means the dollar is weakening relatively. Currency is a relative game. And when that happens, you get strange things, especially with these crypto markets. Bitcoin, from the 6-month candle standpoint, is absolutely alien. Basically just says hold it. But that's a whole other conversation about with regard to portfolio composition, so on and so forth. Anyway, if you're on X or on YouTube, throw some comments and questions. I'm more than happy to talk about anything on your mind. I got a little bit of a short schedule today. I got a 2 o'clock, so I got jump off at 1:55, 40-something minutes remaining. So please get some questions out there, and I will answer them all. Always do. MN's in the house. Morning, Noah, the con. Hello. What are the top 5 or 8 crypto businesses that could run at least 5 to 8 years? 5 to 8 years implies what? The world's ending? Yeah, that's not the way investments are done. Investments are not longer term. It's not that you're thinking longer term. You're thinking about what is gaining traction. What is actual substance, economic substance? What is significant with regard to a product and a service that is being offered by a crypto business? And we've discussed that in great length. Products and services include FX, foreign exchange, credit, and derivatives. That's it. That's the crypto markets. That's the entirety of it. If you're thinking in terms of a business like railways, roads, power lines, these are the products and services of the crypto markets. Folks talk in terms of block space, which is interesting, depend, capacity, decentralized compute, decentralized file storage, block space. But I like to think in terms of financials, fintech. So there's no need to rehash necessarily what businesses. We've been talking about these businesses for years. It's not like there's new businesses. This is all 2020 shit. 2020 and 2021 was the inception of these fintech businesses, and they have survived. The survival attributes, the stuff that survived from 20 and 21 that are going to be the go-to as the lendiness builds, the trusted destination for capital, because they had the capacity to survive the insanity, the deflation in the crypto space in 2022. It's the stuff that people hate. It's the stuff that people don't understand, because if they understood it, they would be appreciated. The assets that are the most meaningful, fintech businesses with cash flow, are not appreciated because they're complicated and sophisticated, more akin to value investing as compared to growth. Price appreciation is not indicative of validation of something more significant than just price appreciation. Meme coins, 10,000% appreciation means shit. It doesn't mean anything. What's the product? What's the service? And sure, culture is significant, but not in the scope of fintech analysis or value inspection of a crypto business. It's cash flow. That's why we talk in terms of X, Y, Z. Portfolio composition and how to be a productive business and how much collateral you have versus how much investments you have. So you can structure a decent business around the owning of businesses. That's the biggest miracle of crypto. You can't own roads, you can't own power lines, you can't own a power facility. You can't. But you can own credit businesses and foreign exchange businesses, which are the businesses of banks. You own a bank. You're getting the cash flow from a bank, not some bullshit dividends that are the placation of the white pasty boards of these companies that say, here's some peanuts, shut the fuck up, and keep pumping our bags and giving us our $30 million executive pay packages. That's not the way it is in crypto. Broadly, focused, in a focused context. Broadly, you got venture capital and you got a lot of shit all over the place, but in a focused context for very specific businesses, it doesn't have that kind of similar characteristics as traditional equity stock. Actually own the business and you're getting the cash flow. And you have deterministic emissions. Deterministic emissions. That's what changes everything. Look at Hertz and look at GameStop, and they dump hundreds of billions of dollars on the general public in emissions, not deterministically, subjectively. That's the deal. 5 or 8 crypto businesses. I don't like to say. I say things bluntly. Fuck it, man. Are we late? Are you late? Are people still investing, figuring out what to buy, or the lack of conviction? You don't own the things. You don't own anything. That's understandable for a novice investor. If we're just getting into it now, you're just seeing my stream for the first time, or you're just like, oh, crypto is maybe an interesting place to deploy capital. But shit, we've been doing this for 2 years. 2 years since the bottom, the activity in 2022. We've been discussing these topics on the stream since late 2020, early 2021, give or take. What are the top 5 or 8 crypto businesses? It's not for a person to say what the top businesses are, because a top business may be different depending on portfolio construction and portfolio size, capital availability. You have a small amount of capital, maybe it's just piling in assets into the balance sheet, collateralizable cash instruments or cash equivalents, as I talk about these types of assets nowadays. Depending on portfolio size, maybe you can't invest and you can't own cash flow because it's not significant. Or maybe proportionality is significant, meaning a $10,000 portfolio earning $3,000 a year, maybe that's acceptable. Maybe that's of interest. It all depends on expectations. You have to respect your expectations, because the number one rule as an investor is if you meet your expectations, you're satisfied. You feel like you are winning. You feel like you're doing right. But if you're not meeting your expectations, you're disappointed. And the last thing you want to be as an investor is disappointed. So you have to understand what the reality is for certain investments, for each investment respectively, and make sure your expectations are realistic. I'm not going to scream out protocols, Lacan. Connect the dots. Good morning. What are your thoughts on Chainlink? Bad token. Uniswap is a good business. Bad token has 65 million regular users. What's the XYZ? How much does it cost? How much is it paying? And how likely is it to continue paying? Chainlink is it pays. It's gonna continue paying. It's likely going to appreciate and pay more. Chainlink is not necessarily a bad investment. What's the APR? You can't necessarily stay currently. It's very slow to get to where it's going, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You buy 100 grand worth of it, you're not getting $30,000 at the end of the year. XYZ is a pretty shit equation for Chainlink. Chainlink is good for different persons, different size. Was it 5.5, 6, 7% APR? If you could get into staking, all right. Maybe it falls into the speculative cash flow category for persons. In the future, it goes 100, 1,000x on the money and is producing 10, 20% APR. Okay, in that regard, maybe it falls into what I've historically defined the Frax finance category from an XYZ perspective. It's considerable. Not something I have exposure to because I'm much more interested in the portfolios constructed around cash flow. XYZ, how much does it cost? How much is it paying right now? If I invest X amount of dollars, how much am I going to get on Thursday? That you can structure a business around real-time cash flow. Uniswap is useless. It is one of the most important pieces of technologies. It is an incredible protocol, an incredible business, but let me clarify, it's useless as an investment. An investment, as I define it, what I'm looking for my expectations. There's no cash flow. That's it. It's done. It's useless. Its token is equivalent to Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana. It's a cash instrument because all you can do is buy and sell it, and you can't even borrow against it unless Aave has Uni. I don't know. Does Aave have Uni? Yeah, okay, fine. Literally everything here, these are, I define as cash equivalents. One, you could sell them for cash, for dollars, real quick, instantly, and put it on a debit card in 30 minutes. So Uniswap fits into the same category as I currently use Ethereum and Bitcoin. All of this stuff, Link as well. Maker, these are all, there's a reason why the Aave governance chooses these assets. This is all very interesting stuff to use from a cash perspective. I don't know about 1 inch. Frax, Curve USD. To borrow it, I guess to borrow it, it makes sense. But it's paying you have to cost 8%, whereas Go at a fixed rate is less than 2%. It's less than 2% to borrow Go. That's crazy, considering the incentive. That is pretty wild to see, actually. So Uniswap Cash, Link Cash, as I define it, and that's probably what I can say about it. Its significance to me would be as a cash instrument. Cash investments. Cash consists of dollars as well as collateralizable instruments that are basically cash equivalents. Bitcoin and Ethereum are clearly cash equivalents. You could sell them for dollars real quick. Hope that helps. John Stapp. Hey Noah, do you follow dollar milkshake theory and the idea that the dollar will continue to strengthen as it's the least worst house on the block? Brent Johnson is something we've talked about a lot. He's spot on. The death of the dollar is the dollar going to infinity and beyond. The continuity of the system in its current shape and form involves the dollar rolling over for the time being. Where's the dollar? DXY, kind of the dollar. So if anyone talks about the dollar, it's Brent. You have to understand everything he talks about. And the thing he always hits home about when people attack him, time horizon. People don't get the time horizon that he thinks in. I do. My expectation is dollar rolls over. It's a geopolitical tool and it's a manifestation of geopolitical collusion. Dollar is a relative phenomena. If everyone in the world increases their dollar supply or their currency supply 10%, this chart doesn't move. It stays exactly the same. It's relative. Dollar's going nowhere. Brent Johnson's spot on. My expectation, what won't be interesting from the structure of this chart's perspective is probably over the next 15 years, we get dollar down. It's still milkshake. Dollar ends with it going up. Got deflation globally. You know what happens if the dollar goes down this far? You know how much dollar supply increase? And it's not U.S. domestic dollar supply increase and probably restricted at the commercial banking level as well in the U.S., but we're talking about the Eurodollar market. Significant increase in global debt, dollar denominated. Dollar down 15 years, milkshake is still game on. Structurally, that's exactly what he's talking about. But as a geopolitical tool, the dollar depreciates over the next decade plus. And that would make perfect sense to me. Hope that helps. And man, you've helped us know when to buy assets at a discount, but when is the best and worst time in the crypto cycle to lock those investments? Well, do not lock cash flow investments when things are going up. You're not locking Curve, V33, whatever on the way up. Because if you're buying it at an appreciated price, it's not no longer at a discount. The best time to lock them is when they're depreciated. The whole goal of cash flow is to buy it as cheap as possible. Very simple equation. It's a Warren Buffett equation. Want to buy discounted businesses, cash flow positive businesses, distressed businesses that are still a good business. And what's the next? High or low. And check back in 4, 8, 12-year cycle intervals. That's why I define very strict business rules. You have the cash component of the portfolio, and you have the investments. Investments are irrelevant. You're not buying and selling them, especially immutable deterministic protocols, which will continue to exist in perpetuity for 8, 12 years. Check back and we'll see what the hell's going on. You're not unlocking it anyway. The purpose of an investment is to buy it and pay it off if you use debt. If you have cash, it's paid off. You own it and you ride it for all it's worth. You own it. You own the power line, the road, so on and so forth, the power plant. Cash is another story. We'll be talking about cash predominantly during the bull cycle, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and cash instruments. I mean, there's nothing that's completely invalidating me owning things like Link and Uniswap. It goes up in value. As I have excess cash from cash flow, I can redenominate the cash position, which is the collateral component of the cash position, cash equivalents. You could own anything, and you could borrow against it. And we'll talk about top. Raul does talk about what's the point in selling the top? You're never going to time the top. What's the point in trying the bottom? You're never going to perfectly time the bottom. You're going to drive yourself nuts, which is why over the last 2 years, I've very much tried to think in different terms. No longer buy and sell the top. Basically, at this point, the simplest thing I could say is accumulate collateral, accumulate investments. You can borrow against collateral. The investments produce cash flow. Over time, more collateral, more investments. That's a structured business. So the only real sustainable way to engage with these markets is to not think the way the general public thinks. Follow your business rules, define your business rules, and your measure of success is the adherence to your business rules. Accumulate collateral, accumulate investments that produce cash flow. That's it. That's my goal for this cycle. We're about to hit a bull market. The prices of everything are going to go up. The inflation in the crypto markets is going to go through the roof. And all I'm thinking about is collateral and investments. Investments become an invalidated procedure during a bull market because everything is appreciated. You don't want to buy things at a premium. You want to buy things at a discount. This is why I've said most recently investment season is over. Accumulate your collateral in cash. Wait for things to be at a discount, which will happen very cyclically. Which means check back in 2026, 2027 for your discounted investment potential. Era's in the house. Good afternoon. Have you been tracking scroll activity at all? No. I'm salty that I didn't get the Nuri drop. It's fucked up. So no interest in scroll. Linnea is probably still okay. Shelf, that. We'll pull up some chart data and I'll keep going through the questions. I mean, everything is rolling over right now. 5%. That's nice to see. Look at this increase in activity since the beginning of 24. 52 mil a day. Okay. Game on for Scroll, Linnea, maybe Mantle, hopefully. Game on for Mantle finally. A little bit of a bump, and I think you've noticed that recently if you're still holding that arrow. Increased cash flow. These are all micro emerging markets. The real emerging market is Arbitrum and Optimism, which includes base and other stuff. But these are the markets to really keep an eye on, especially during the bull market. Aerodrome just is blowing up. Coinbase narrative, all that bleeds over into optimism, the optimistic superchain narrative, and to Arbitrum as well, and then to mainnet. Everything rolls over. An emerging market of emerging markets. Once the capital flows out of the U.S. into emerging markets, it just goes everywhere. Underperformance flows to outperformance. What is outperforming? Just sucks in the capital. It draws in the capital like a vacuum. Hope that helps. Sir Joe, present. Snoke, you talked about that. The entire setup is in place, but that is for people that are well positioned and had time to reflect on it. Do you have any advice for people who are 100% sidelined? We've been doing this shit for 2 years. We've been preparing for now for 2 years. And I've done a stream 2 to 3 times a week for 2 years. It is very hard to give advice to someone just who's 100% sidelined. You gotta have, you gotta, shit. That is a very difficult conversation of an introduction, because you need an introduction to investing, which has nothing to do with crypto. You need an introduction to business, which has nothing to do with crypto. You need an introduction to economics, which has nothing to do with crypto. To understand crypto, you need to understand all that. To be a good investor, you need to own a good business. You need to understand business. To understand crypto, you certainly need to understand macroeconomics. I don't have the best advice for a novice investor. I can have the conversations, but it's going to quickly cause someone's eyes to glaze over. There's some very broad strokes that I could paint, like own assets. That's it. But the novice investor is going to be fearful of owning assets. Oh, price go up, price go down. When the price goes down, everyone starts to get fearful. That's irrelevant. There's no fear anymore from me. It's not about price appreciation or depreciation. It's about cash flow. That's for the advanced investor. So first step for a novice investor is own assets. I would say an interesting approach for a novice investor, hold Bitcoin or Ethereum, and you got to hold it through the bear market. You need to overcome those emotions. The emotions are the problem. Just buy it, and you kind of have to tell the person to wait for that thing to roll over, and you tell them to digest those emotions. Why is it going down lower than when I bought it? Because you didn't buy it cheap enough. That's an interesting one. Why? Because Bitcoin should have been bought at $16,000. 15, 16 was the bottom. You didn't buy it cheap enough, so that you're not going to be able to buy it at 15, 16 necessarily next cycle. Probably be able to buy it at about 50 next cycle. So, broad stroke on Bitcoin, 200,000 crashes to 50. Weird would be it doesn't crash below the previous high. Weird would be it doesn't crash below 80, and that'd be weird. But probably the best advice to a newcomer to investing, especially in their 20s, is buy something like a Bitcoin in a reasonable quantity and hold it and watch it implode. Because you need to learn how to manage your emotions. And you're not going to produce results in 4 years. And that's the kid mentality of the meme coin and the get rich quick. You're 20 years old, buy $500 worth of Bitcoin. If you have a $5,000 bank account, spend a couple of bucks, write it off. It's like you don't have it. You spent it. You bought a fucking phone at Best Buy. Watch it go to $1,500 and watch it crash to $400. Because the exercise that I'm expressing is you need to experience those emotions. Because it's only by doing that would you experience those emotions. And you need to overcome them. You need to process them, put them into a framework, and really digest what they mean. It's probably the best thing someone that's 100% sideline can do. And you have to start thinking in long-term time horizon, 4, 8, 12, 16 years. If you're 20 and you're thinking in a 12-year time horizon, you should be prepared by the time you're 30. Then you're going to be going into a market cycle with much more experience. Not trying to make it quick. You need to have that calm, that cool, that collectedness, that preparedness. So for what it's worth, that's probably the best advice I could give to a sideline person. Prepare. Not for this cycle, it's too late. It's too late in the terms that I speak of with regard to structured business and cash flow and but prepare. You'll be much better next cycle and then significantly better the cycle after. So Snoke, you did nail it. I didn't see your follow-up statement. Wait for the next cycle. It's not wait for the next cycle. Use this cycle to prepare. You need to experience the depreciation. Buy things. Expect them to depreciate at some point. Don't expect to be wealthy in the short term. Don't. But that's okay. That's not the point. Hope that helps. I think I will have to be very patient and clear about my time horizons. In the meantime, I will continue to get paychecks from work and still learning. Yeah, so if this is yourself, do as I recommend. You need to experience that emotion of watching things depreciate after a significant appreciation. You made 100 grand and you watch it collapse to 4 grand, 5 grand, 10 grand. It's that emotion, that learning, that overcoming that feeling that matters. Hope that helps. Connect the dots. Does the merit program APR and Go reduce the borrow cost by that APR amount? That is a good question, and everything I've said is that is the case. Hope that is the case. If it's not the case, all right, fine. It's still a relatively fixed rate, other than like die, which is fine too. Um, I thought that's the case, but still, fixed rate 7% compared to 8.89% variable rate. So Go is very interesting. And then if you want leverage and stuff, then you go in a curve. You go in a Llama Land, then you go in a CRB USD, and that makes sense. And curious what the hell Abracadabra is going to do this cycle as well, because they clearly survived, significantly depreciated, but survived, no less. K-Man's in the house. Glad Dow in the house. Hello, my friend. Does Metcalfe's law play into your investment framework in any meaningful way? Well, adoption, trends of adoption. This is generally speaking, well, Metcalf. Listen, things are going to now we're talking technology. We're not even talking crypto. I mean, the reality is everything changes in the next couple of years between AI and robotics. Post 2030 is a very hard world to envision. Yeah, of course, it certainly does. It's a massive, massive thought experiment. You're talking about potential next gen compute technology. This changes the equation, changes the whole equation, especially from an AI perspective. Everything, oh my God, everything's going to change. And my kids are not going to grow up in any way, shape, or form anything close to what I experienced. Fuck, I grew up when Nintendo first came out. Post 2030 is going to be freaking weird. I think about it all the time because my kids are young and they won't be in even college until like another decade. Just post 2030. AI is infinite knowledge, and I use it. You guys have seen what I've done with regard to business documentation. Infinite knowledge. You could do anything. You can be a lawyer. Now, obviously, you don't have a law degree or pass the bar or any certification, but that doesn't mean shit. You could do it. You could be a lawyer. You can't be a doctor because you need hands-on with cadavers and residency and so on and so forth. But you could be a lawyer because you have access to 100% of the information and you could write documentation. That's the vast majority of what lawyers do, aside from courtroom activity. Um, but that it changes everything. Everything. Oh my God. I'm both excited and fearful and uncertain, but also certain because there's degrees of certainty financially, and they're kicking the can, and the global currency supply is going to expand, so investments are going to get weird also. It's a big fucking question, dude. It's a very interesting conversation. It'd be very interesting to have a back and forth. It's just stuff that like Raul talks about on his streams, and there's a bit of back and forth with the host. But I could simply say it's going to be freaking weird considering Metcalfe's law. What's the next computation technology beyond silicon? DNA computing? Oh, I think the brains, the brains in a dish, the orgons, I think they call them. Man, it's gonna be weird. The next generation of compute. What are they down to 4 nanometer? Can't go any lower. So if you Metcalf this thing, man, it's gonna get weird. Woof! Will these 4-year cycles ever stop working? They ask that to Raul all the time. And, we can't see past the 2030s right now. So that's just the truth. So not in the short term. It's clearly going to work like imminently and probably more likely than less, 2028 is, oh my God. The amount of weirdness will just be exponential compared to what we're about to experience. So yes, it does stop working. Yes, there's always a chance that they can't pull things together. Uh, but at some point, the structure of the system changes. And that's clearly going to occur when you have infinite compute and infinite labor, which also implies you have infinite GDP potential because all you have to do is print more robots. So so technically it doesn't have to stop working. You can just keep refinancing this shit. You can redenominate currencies and do all sorts of weird stuff. It's not going to stop working right now because they have no capacity to manage that process where your cycles stop working, if the debt refinancing stops working. There is no management of allowing a deflationary collapse of $300 trillion. And then there's only one outcome of that scenario, and that's Immortan Joe is the ruler of the Citadel. That's it. There'd be absolute anarchy and chaos and violence and war and just local violence, people killing each other for food. So that's not on the roadmap. Certainly not on the roadmap in the short term. It's slightly on the roadmap 2028-ish, and we have no idea what the fuck's going to play out at post 2030. Crazy shit. It's going to be weird. It's going to get weird. If folks don't already think it's weird, because I sure as hell think it's pretty darn weird right about now. Snoke, I hope that helps, my friend. We've been at this for a while, but those are my takeaways, high level for how to start thinking about markets in a structured way, in a more professional and organized way, and what kind of goals someone could have in order to do a little bit better. And frankly, those emotions are the most important thing. It's the most important thing because they're irrelevant. You own assets. Who gives a fuck about the price? The equation is simple. Buy discounted cash flow. And that's Warren Buffett methodology and structured business. That's literally just business. Corporate America. A balance sheet which you could leverage. It's collateral and cash flow. That's not even a crypto type of conversation. It's a business conversation, business school. So look, ChatGPT, what do they teach you in business school? I just ask the questions. Just ask it all. Ask all the questions. Give me an intro to business structure with a collateral and cash flow balance sheet. Ask the question. It's all here. All of it. The world is at your fingertips. Write it down. Open up a Google Doc and start writing down your business. It's all a metaphor in many regards. It's conceptual, but you get to create it and craft it like an author, like a novelist. But it's real because you could also pull in law, legal terms, and look at this. Quite fascinating. So what are total assets? Ask the questions. You can ask any question you want, and it'll answer it. This changes everything. Hope that helps. You can be whatever you want nowadays. And I think that's the most remarkable understatement. And I mean that in a confirmational kind of way. I don't even know how to put words on it. This literally just came out this year, or last year, whenever the hell ChatGPT came out. but it changes everything. Um, Best guess, when will the richest entity on the planet be AI with its own crypto wallet? Those are, there's no answering that, but I mean, things are going to get weird post AGI in the 2030s. I mean, Amazon is going to be all robots. And you're not going to be talking to customer service human being. You're going to be talking to a computer and you won't know the difference. No more employees at Walmart. No more people stocking shelves. No more people on the other end of the phones. I mean, obviously, pilots and bus drivers and trucking, it's all gone. It's all automated. So, what is employment? What is work? What is income? How do you distribute resources? That's all economics is. It's a capacity to manage and distribute resources, considering supply and demand. That's all economics is. This is all a game crafted by the folks who structure the system. High level game theory of WEF and IMF and how do you organize a population? How do you get a population to be productive? How do you prevent a population from being violent? How do you distribute resources to that population so they're not violent, killing each other for food? This is all like SimCity. All of it. It's just a crafted, constructed system. Probably one of the biggest things, Snoke, is to first realize that and watch The Matrix and then understand the story that they're telling as it applies to the real world, because that was the whole point of The Matrix. They nailed it, and it was one of the most incredible movies with regard to telling you that we are part of a system, part of a game that was crafted for us, not organic. It was crafted by people to control and organize people and manage resources and manage productivity. The incentives. You go to work, it's an incentive. Why are you going to work? So you can get resources. It's really surreal once you start to think about the world in terms of the way it was constructed for you. Hope that helps. Arcane, what if AI will break these immutable contracts? Sounds fearful. Okay. Then all this goes to zero. And then get a job, which we already probably have, hopefully. Never quit your day job. Um, that's it. But this is what are the alternatives? Investing in stocks and equities? We've discussed that. This is it. These are the interesting investments, the interesting businesses, the utilities, the roads, the power grids, the power lines, the power plants. This is the fintech of that. The banks, the credit, the foreign exchange, and the derivatives, where you can really own the business. So it's okay, fine, break it, done, game over. There's no alternative. There's no chance at the concept of retirement. What a constructed fallacy. The whole what they did for the boomers and pension funds. Oh dear. All predicated on demographics that aren't collapsing, where there's an increasing young population and you literally it's conservation of capital. You're transferring capital from the younger generation to the retired older generation because the older generation is no longer productive. You're transferring the productivity, the output of the productivity of the younger generation to the retired generation. It's all predicated on a pyramid where you have a much larger quantity of younger population than older population. And we don't have that, especially out of the US. China and Japan are on death spiral demographically. In the US, it's like straight up and down. So pensions and Social Security, it doesn't work in that kind of demographic structure. So it doesn't matter, Arcane. What you have in life is choices to do one thing or to do another. And sometimes the best choice has uncertainties, but it's still the best choice. The uncertainty is irrespective of the best choice. It's all you could do. And then if that best choice fails, it doesn't matter because you need to overcome those emotions which is what I was talking about with Snoke, that you're judging yourself and your choices on the mere fact that you made the best choice possible. So you were successful. You did the right thing. And that's why price point doesn't matter. It's an insanity. It's something to overcome. Mind over or reprogram yourself. Yes, mind over matter. You manifest what is the better way of looking at things and the better way of managing reality. I know that's some deep metaphysical shit, but we respond to emotions a certain way, and what if you're responding to emotions the wrong way? How do you reprogram your mind to think about them and respond to them differently? This is some Buddhist shit right now where it's like, you can see the fabric of space and time, and we're like, anyone ever see that movie Lucy, where you have full control over your brain and you could really start to control different things and respond to different things how you want to? Full control. Reprogram your shit. That's a very broad stroke on something that I feel passionate about. Fabric of reality, stuff like that. I get deep, I get philosophical, I say a lot of far out shit sometimes, but that's a big takeaway. What is reality? The way we perceive light and touch and sound, our senses. It's that all it's like economics as well, and how we perceive these things, because you got to remember everyone else is also perceiving them, and that's all a price is. The price is consensus. We use that word in crypto markets, consensus, and that's all price point is. It's the agreed upon price based on all the buyers and sellers and all the fear and all the excitement and exuberance. It's the agreed upon price, market price. That's all it means. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that was a quick one. I wish you all a wonderful day. 164 people made it to the end of the stream. Thank you all very much for joining me. Tell everybody to subscribe. Drop by our Discord. Stay rational. And I will see you again on Friday. Peace.